Teresa. It's a little bit longer than I had hoped to get out the second video, but I've been hitting a lot of technical difficulties with kind of understanding how all the software works and the process of uploading, all that good stuff. This is not as straightforward as I had expected it to be. So a few things I kind of wanted to update. I have my notes here. All right, so a few things I kind of wanted to update you on. I have been doing a lot in regards to video podcasting. So I've created a YouTube account where you can find me. I'll have a link posted to that. Facebook, definitely I'm uploading videos there as well. And my website, I've been working on that. That is a lot of work that's involved in getting those things kind of set up if you don't know what you're doing. So it's been a real learning experience. I've been having a lot of fun. I have also been knitting up a storm. I have been really enjoying working on some of my latest projects, and I'll cover some of those with you a little bit later. And I'm also working, as far as these video casts go, I'm working on coming up with a really defined process. Like, I really want to have like segments that you can come in, you can go, oh, I'm so excited to hear about, whatever. And, this is something that I've been observing as I've been listening to a lot of the other podcasters in our space, and not just within knitting and crocheting and the fiber art space, but also podcasters in general. And just trying to figure out, what do I like about those podcasts? What are some things that I think I would like to adapt for my own? And how do I put my own spin on everything? Because I'm trying to be different, and hopefully you can relate to that. So that is definitely something that I'm working on for now. And you're going to see some of those for the first time in this video cast. Hoping, fingers crossed, everything goes well today. All right. So some show and tell. All right. So I heard feedback after the last podcast that you guys wanted more visuals. You wanted to see what some of the things I was talking about are. So we're going to start. Let's see if I can get this. This is the Scribblecini Poncini. And it's kind of hard to show. I'll just flip it on over my head real quick. And this is a very simple poncho style. I get so many compliments on this when I wear it out. And it's super comfortable, and I love the fact that it goes into this light orange, and the gradient on this is just something that I really, really love. And I usually style it with a cami or some sort of a tank top underneath it for that kind of blends in a little bit, typically something in the purple, because I love purple. I love this. It is like wearing a hug all day long. And this is the garment that I got directly out of that Steven workshop that I did the same week as Stitches. So that's one item. Another item that I just finished up. Now this has not been blocked yet, so the yarn still needs to bloom. Look, I've got my stockinette edges kind of all rolling over, and the lace isn't opened up. But just for initials, this is the semi-formal shawl, and ideally it's going to do something along these lines without all the rolling on the edges. So I am super excited about this. I love this yarn. This is Manos del Uruguay yarn, which I adore. I bought this at Knit This Purl That, which is a local yarn store for me in Pleasanton, California. And I saw the colors, and I just fell absolutely in love. And those of you who have been following me on Instagram know that actually that's the second iteration of a shawl with that particular yarn. I initially intended to do the Asbury Park shawl. And what I discovered with this particular yarn is that it just didn't show well in a garter stitch. So I kind of stopped working on the garter, and my husband looked at me very quizzically as I worked up about 2 inches in stockinette just to get a sense, doing short rows, just to get a sense of if I would like it better in a stockinette. And the stockinette made such a big difference that I just ripped the whole thing out and started over. I love the Asbury Park shawl, so I've got to find a good yarn that'll reflect well with that. The ones I'm seeing on Instagram that I like in that particular pattern seem to be lighter variegated yarns. So I think that's where I kind of mismatched yarn to pattern, because this Manos yarn it's definitely in that darker range with all the purples and the deep pinks and all that. The only thing, if I were to change anything about this particular shawl, it might be And I'll do try to do a close up here of the lace. I don't know if I can get that in too well. If I were to do anything, I might have done the lace section in a contrast color. Something solid, just so that the lace really shows. I'm curious to see how this reflects once it's fully blocked and all the points on the lace and all that stand out really well. But along the lines of that new shawl pattern that StitchesWest just released this week at the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, I think that was where it was. That is amazing, and I'm dying to knit that up. But one of the things that really stands out about that particular shawl is that the lace section with the scalloped edges is really it stands out because it's in a contrast color. And I just think that maybe if I were to do this again, that might have been a better way to really show off the monos colorway. Yeah, so that might be the one change I would make next time. Okay, so that's enough for show and tell for now. I've got more coming later. All right, Knitter's Notebook, new segment, yay! All right, so Knitter's Notebook, I promised on my last cast that I would talk more about StitchesWest. So this is my third or fourth StitchesWest that I've been to. Usually what happens is I go on a Saturday or a Sunday and I bring my husband with me and I bring my kid with me and we all go. And it's been really interesting to have my husband with me because he had no idea how massive and intense the knitting world really is, right? The idea that it attracts 8,500 to 10,000 people over the course of a weekend, that's amazing. The number of booths and everything that they have there, the number of vendors, the marketplace is so full, and just knitters everywhere. For him, that was just really an eye-opening experience because he just kind of knew that his sisters knit a little bit and I knit. But it really kind of gave him a sense of the scale of the knitting world. So if you have not been to one of those conventions, if you haven't been to StitchesWest, Stitches Midwest, or anything like that, I would really, really encourage you to go. Because knitting, we like to knit in community. That's why we have knitting groups, and our local yarn shops tend to be, part of that for us. That's where we get that sense of community from. But there's something about stepping back outside of that and really immersing yourself in thousands of knitters. That is just a very, very different experience. So this year I decided to handle things a little bit differently because I have some secret projects I'm working on and I wanted to get a chance to talk with some people, and I also wanted to get a deeper Stitches experience. So rather than just spending, walking the floor real quick one time over 4 hours and buying one or two items, I really wanted to get a deeper look at a lot of the different booths that were there and get a chance to really talk with more knitters and just really, just shift the experience for me. I had thought about taking some classes, and when I looked at the schedule in October, realized that I was late to the game, which was really sad for me. So the classes I was most interested in were already filled up. At that point, I decided not to go ahead and become an attendee. I will not do that again next year. Next year, I'll either be a vendor, more on that in the coming months, possibly, or I will be taking classes, and hopefully a combination of the two. I found that there were events that happened on Thursday night, especially the pre-opening of the marketplace, the exclusive. All the attendees got to go in first to the marketplace and really get a chance to see some things. That's a big advantage if you want to shop for yarn, because a lot of the yarn shops had like the Yarn Over truck. Oh my gosh, first of all, amazing booth. But they had 3 separate colorways that were exclusive to the StitchesWest experience, and they were sold out of 2 of them by the time I got there early Friday early afternoon. So that's definitely an advantage. Also, the Stephen and Stephen fashion show that happened Thursday night, everybody I heard talk about that. It really made me disappointed that I missed those fashion shows and that I was not there for those. So that's another thing that I would really want to change. So I think next year, regardless, I'm going to be a participant in some way, shape, or form. I got to the marketplace for the first time Friday morning, and I bought the 3-day pass to go into the marketplace. And I had my child with me, and she was excited to be there because she likes to knit also. And she is not a pattern knitter. She is more of a freeform knitter. She proudly announces to me periodically that she's making up new stitches. So good for her. It took us again about the normal 4 hours to do a first pass through the marketplace. It didn't take me long to kind of make my first purchase. I had planned on walking the whole thing first and then coming back and thinking things through and making some decisions because I did come in with a budget this year, which normally I don't. And I said, and then I started finding stuff and I was like, gosh, and I realized how much more full. That was my first impression when I walked in, that the marketplace was a lot more full than I remember seeing it. So I walked through and I bought what I could buy, which was a lot of different yarns. And it was exciting for me because, in the past I've always kind of knitted with acrylics or wherever I could find at Michael's and Joann's, and I didn't really worry about it too much. And sorry, my hair here is bothering me. Ugh, okay, I'm cute again. So I just really, I saw colors that were new and exciting to me. For some reason, I fell in love with sparkle yarn, which I'm not usually that person, but I totally fell in love with sparkle yarn this year. And I also fell in love with a lot of yellows, which really surprised me because if you were to ask me, I tend to live in the deep pink, deep blue, deep purple kind of tonal ranges. If I'm going to go with something different, I'll head straight to neutrals, typically like a tan, light brownish colors. But I tend to go for very deep, very rich colors. So to see me go for something like a yellow really, really surprised me that that's where I just felt attracted. But I did. I bought a lot of yarn in that. I also was on the lookout for new tools that I can review because I'm always looking for things that I can review. I found some blocking wires, which I'm excited about. And I found, let me see, what else did I find? I found a lot of different things. I came home and took us 2 trips to get everything out of the car. So we found a lot of great stuff on that sales floor. It was great to go back by the Ablet booth with the Knitting Abacus and getting a chance to chat there for a few moments. Erin Lane bags. I have been hearing about Erin Lane bags on a couple of different podcasts, including the Knitmore Girls. So I finally broke down and I bought one. This is the twofer bag, and then this is a project bag that I bought. And I've never used project bags before. I also bought a Diana Couture one. I've never used project bags before. I've always had a big canvas bag, and I just threw all my knitting in there, and that was just kind of what I traveled with me. And if I really wanted something more portable, I was just stuffing my yarn and my needles directly into my purse. And I get frustrated because everything gets tangled up, it gets dirty, I have a kid, it's not the best solution, but it was the best I had come up with. So this is my first time really trying project bags. Spoiler alert, I'm sold on them. I will never go back to throwing my knitting in my purse again. I really struggle to imagine that future for myself. But I'll save the rest of it for my deeper reviews on my website when I do those, which will be coming soon. So Erin Lane bags, I got a chance to finally see Miss Babs yarn. This was a great year because this is the first year where I've really been following people on Instagram. I've never been an Instagram user up until about 6-8 months ago. And I'm finding all these brands that I love. Like I do like Miss Babs, but to get a chance to actually see the Yowza yarn in person and to really touch it and feel it, you start to understand where the addiction comes from for some of these other knitters. The Seeing Neighborhood Yarn Fiber Company. I hope I got that name right. There was an amazing booth. The Yarn Over truck, which I just love. I think I just love the idea of a food truck for yarn in general. That to get a chance to see them without having to drive down to Southern California was really fantastic. The booth was really, really well done. It was a massive, massive booth, and they had, obviously yarn all over the place, but then they also parked their truck inside their booth. So you could actually go in and get a sense of what that shopping experience is like. And frankly, the next time I'm down in Southern California, I fully intend to stock the Yarn Over truck and make a purchase from them again. That for me was kind of one of the best things about this, was getting kind of exposed to some new indie dyers that I wasn't familiar with. One of them was Forbidden Woolery, and I bought some skeins of a pretty amazing linen yarn that I'm really excited about. They had a sample on the mannequin that I really just fell in love with. It's like almost like a shawl cowl collar tank top, and I wear a lot of tank tops. So for me, I was really excited to buy that. I almost didn't buy anything. I actually passed that up the first pass through because I was trying to make decisions about, do I really want to spend my money on this or not? And then by Saturday, I was like, "Ah, I should not have passed that up." And so I went back Saturday and I almost didn't get the color that I wanted because they were sold out so much. So that was a lot of my experience. I got some really, so I had some knitterati experiences, and that's a term that I heard on the To Use Fiber podcast, and I am totally stealing that. I love that phrase, the knitterati. So Stephen and Stephen absolutely are knitterati, as well as like seeing some of the designers, getting to meet some of the designers that I like. Karen McCall, I got a chance to actually sit down and chat with her for a few minutes and show her some of the things I had done. I got to meet Alana Dacos, the Never Not Knitting podcast, in her little shop. Her booth was super cute, just a total little beach vibe. Very, I just really enjoyed it. And I got to buy some of those buttons that she was talking about on a prior podcast, where the buttons, when you stitch through them to sew them on, actually form a little pattern. So I bought a few of those, which I was really excited to do. Let me see, what else did I want to? So Saturday I came back, and the difference to me when I came back on Saturday and Friday was just how sold down the shops were in comparison to Friday. And that to me is why I would absolutely push forward for a Thursday opportunity in the future. Not only did I miss out on some of those exclusive colorways, but just the quantities of yarn and the variety of yarn, it's just a big difference between Friday and Saturday. And then from Saturday to Sunday, you could just tell that all the booths were working really hard to re-engineer their merchandise so that it would still give an impression of fullness. But if you had been there the prior days, you could just see that they were selling a lot of items. I saw some yarn bowls that I love. There's some great ceramicists at this StitchesWest this year, which I was excited to see. Saturday afternoon was the podcaster meetup. So I have been listening to a lot of knitting podcasts. I've been trying to kind of figure out which ones match the vibe that I'm most comfortable with and which ones I really enjoy. And so I've been listening a lot to the Knitmore girls. I've been listening a lot to the Yarniacs. I love them. I have been listening to a few other podcasts kind of here or there, but not as many are as consistent as the Knitmore girls and the Yarniacs in terms of making sure that they have episodes posted on a consistent basis. And some of them are just really just too long for me. So like I love Mina Phillips. Anybody who followed her in January as she did the January sock knitting, I guess competition challenge, where she knit 36 pairs of socks in the month of January, just blows my mind. Her podcasts are wonderful, but they're just too long for me. 2 hours. It's just something I just can't commit to. So I'm a little picky about podcasts because I want to learn something. I want to get to know you, and I really want, and I don't want it to take up too much of my time. So you'll actually see that hopefully reflected in this video podcast as we move forward, because my intention is to keep this to about 20, maybe 30 minutes in general. But we'll see how successful I am with that, or how this evolves. So I'm being kind with myself and gentle as we move this forward because I'm learning. So the Saturday morning, all right, so I fangirl. I can't help it. It's just who I am. And the Knitmore girls, I absolutely put them on a different level when it comes to podcasts. I love the dynamic between Jasmine and Gigi. I love the fact that they're always talking about new things that happen and things that they're learning. And I love they drop little tips and hints here or there. And I don't even think that they know that they're doing it. They're just sharing their experiences. But, some of the things that Jasmine has said about setting a zipper in on a sweater, like, I love that. I love to hear that stuff. I love their Mother Knows Best segment. I can't really, I fangirl. So, Saturday morning, I had been kind of looking for them on Friday. Just kind of, maybe I'm going to see them. Maybe I'm going to see them. Maybe I'm going to see them. And I knew they'd be at the podcaster meetup on Saturday, but there was a chance that I wasn't going to be able to go to that because I had some meetings kind of scheduled for that. So anyway, I'm walking in Saturday morning, and I'm walking in. It's like 9:30, 9:45-ish, something along those lines. And I see a pink-haired woman with another woman who looks strikingly like Gigi, with two other women and a baby strapped to her. And I was like, I think that's the Knitmore girls. So I was so afraid I was going to miss my chance. You guys, this is terrible. So I was so afraid I was going to miss my chance to meet them that I hustled my way through, and I must have looked ridiculous with my purse and my big canvas bag slung over my shoulder and just kind of trying to hustle through. And I walk in, and they're not even in like the marketplace. Like they're kind of in the middle of like no man's land, and they're kind of walking with a purpose. But she has a baby, so you can't walk too fast when you're walking with a purpose, right? So and I'm like, "Excuse me, are you the Knitmore girls?" And they didn't even hear me. And somebody else in their group turned around. She says, "Yeah, they are." And she goes, "Jasmine, Gigi, I think you guys have a listener." And so they turned around, and they're like, "Yeah." And I felt so badly because they were clearly not like in a mind frame to meet new people at that point, but they were so gracious about it that and I, of course, naturally, when do I get tongue tied? At the worst possible moment. So I can't even like say anything. It's so bad. But I had such a great time just getting a chance to meet them. It turned out the other two women that they were with are also podcasters. Boston Jen of the Downseller Studios podcast, and then there was Emily with the Knitting Butterflies podcast. And they were just lovely people as well, and they handed me little, swag, like Ziplocs with little swag in them, which I thought was really, really sweet, and I really liked. So Jasmine politely pointed out that they would be available she asked me if I was taking any classes, and I said, no, I didn't sign up for any classes. I've just been kind of stalking the marketplace and just talking with people this year. And then she did mention, she says, well, maybe we'll see you at the podcast this afternoon, which I took as a very polite, I think they needed to get to some classes because they didn't go to the marketplace. And I just took that as a time to move on. So, all right. So at that point, I decided I absolutely was going to go to the podcast. And so I reshuffled some things, and I went to the podcaster meetup at 2. And I have never walked through the Hyatt at StitchesWest to see other knitters. Like as you walk up to the convention, because the whole thing is held at the Santa Clara Convention Center, which for those of you who don't know is now right across the street from the Levi Stadium and Great America. And Levi Stadium is where the Super Bowl was held this year. So it's a big space. And as you walk up, you see, in the afternoons, you see a bunch of knitters sitting outside, knitting and chatting. And some of them will have like a coffee or a sandwich or something. You walk inside, there's a little cafe outside the marketplace, people knitting all over the place there as well. But then if you walk through and you get to the actual, like the Hyatt, which is connected to the convention center, and the bar area, which is right there. I mean, it was knitter wonderland. I could not believe how many knitters were there. It was insane. And I just felt almost like, I have found my people. So... but I didn't know how to recognize any of the other podcasters besides Jasmine and Gigi, and I'm an introvert. So a fangirl introvert, not a good combination. So I kind of went back up to Jasmine and Gigi, and I was trying to figure out how to kind of restart the conversation, and I thought through very carefully. I was like, okay, so this time can't do the same thing. Need to have a question. And so I walked back up. I'm like, hey, I think I met you guys this morning. She's all, yeah, you did. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, oh, I had a question. And I asked her, how much do you knit? How fast do you knit? And she was kind of, I didn't realize I'd actually interrupted the conversation they were having with somebody else. But Gigi was so sweet. She started talking to me about her schedule and how much she knits. And, she made it sound like they don't really knit as much as I thought they were, like the number of hours. Like if I listen to their podcast, the number of projects they complete is insane, and the progress that they make on things. So since I've had that conversation with Gigi, I've actually been paying more attention to the podcast and kind of listening, like to, how long is it really taking them to complete some of these projects? And I realized that, when you fangirl, what have you done? You really just built people up, right? So I just said, I realized that they are probably knitting a lot. I think that they probably did downplay a little bit how much they knit when I was talking with Gigi, but on the other hand, I don't think they knit as much as in my head I'd kind of built them up, or at the speed that I'd kind of built them up to be knitting at in my head. And that for me was just kind of nice. I don't know why, but for me that was very reassuring. So beyond that, I also got to meet the Yarniacs, which was really fantastic because I do love listening to their podcast as well. So I got to meet Cheryl and Gail, and it's interesting because Gail and I mean, we we each had the comment that, gosh, you look so familiar. I feel like I should know you. And when I talked with Gail, I handed her my business card, and I just, I told her a little bit about what I do, and we got a chance to chat a little bit. And I told her that their segments are very expensive because I'm always end up stalking the patterns that they're talking about there, which is, I mean, I've just got projects just lined up for days at this point. And, but for some reason, we couldn't figure out how we knew each other. After I left and we kind of separated, I said, yeah, I was wondering if maybe, I've only been married for about 2 years or so. And I was wondering maybe she knew me underneath my maiden name because that's rather distinctive. So I'll have to reach back out to her and just see if that's what it is, or maybe we'll run into each other again some other time. So Sunday, and then the other thing was at StitchesWest, so sitting down at a table. If you're an introvert like I am, it can be really hard. It can be really intimidating to start a conversation with somebody. You really have to kind of screw up your courage, and for me, I can only really start a conversation if I'm kind of in control of the setting, or if I know exactly what's expected of me in that moment. And being at something as big as the StitchesWest, it is really intimidating for me to start a conversation with somebody and to really stretch myself that way. But what I have found, if you are like me and you struggle to have those conversations, sit yourself down at the start of lunch and pick a table that has a couple of empty chairs and just hang out there. Somebody will sit down to you, and there will always be somebody who is more extroverted who will sit down next to you. Because unless the tables are all full up, they are probably somebody who is no problem starting a conversation with a stranger. And I found that I actually made some friends that way. I actually had some really great conversations, and it was really comforting for me. So that's going to be one of my go-to strategies in the future whenever I have to go to one of these events and I'm just uncomfortable trying to meet new people. Which is to say that if you ever see me out and about, just please introduce yourself, because I will be too shy to start a conversation with you in all likelihood. So Sunday, I brought my daughter back with me because she begged to come back with me, and we hung around and we got to see the little giveaway that happens after all the grand prize tickets. Needless to say, I totally blew my budget. I probably spent about double what I had expected to spend. I haven't even added up all my receipts because I haven't been able to bring myself to look at that quite yet. But they're all sitting in my email waiting for me to tally them up. But I have some great purchases. I'm really excited about the yarns that I bought. Really excited to try out some of these tools that I purchased and just get, to kind of develop my thoughts and to test them and to see if they really do what I think they should be doing, or how, what do they actually do, and to get that information out to you guys and in your hands. The giveaway was handled really, really well by the guy who emceed the handout of the money. And he was giving out $400 cash. I couldn't believe it. Like that, I was just really surprised by that. I did not expect it to be quite that large, but that was just fantastic. And of course, same error as always every year. Somehow my name was not called for a door prize. So boo-hoo. Come on, XRX. Mama needs to win something. So that's kind of the Knitter's Notebook. We talked about Knitterati. Yeah. I would just say in the future, if you're going to go on one day, if there's any way that you can go on a Friday, absolutely go on Friday. Don't wait till Saturday. Don't wait till Sunday. But the sooner you can get to the marketplace, the better. You'll have better options. There will be more yarn selection available, and some of the convention exclusives will still be available, because it was a shopping frenzy. It was just overwhelming. So, all right, Whipping It, the Worksome project. Whipping It is the next segment that I was going to talk about. So I already showed you guys the Scribblecini, Poncini, and the semi-formal tee. Two other projects I currently have going, and I have more things I have that are blocked and need to be assembled and all that. But so out of my Erin Lane 2 bag that I picked up at Stitches, these are my window pane socks. Ugh. Lots of yarn to manage on this one. And I have been knitting these as a magic loop. And what's nice about these, I've been knitting these as 2 at a time on magic loop. So I had to actually go through and find a needle that was the right length for these. And I like these because they have a turned hem, or a turned cuff, which I'm liking a lot. But I goofed the gauge somehow. And I should have known better because I've knit the last 2 pairs in the Lucy Neat Bee. Those are the window pane socks from the Lucy Neat Bee 2016 sock knit along that's available on Craftsy. The other 2 pairs of socks, the January and February socks, I knit those to 64 stitches, and they came out like a great size for me. And then when I saw this pattern, she had said a size 2 on a 54, and I tend to knit loose anyway. So I took it down to a size 1 needle, and I cast on 54 inches. I finished that cuff, which there's a lot that goes into these cuffs. Anytime you do a turned hem, there's a lot. But then there's also all the additional, there's slip stitches that happen. You're managing a lot of different things. By the time I got this done and I had all those ends woven in to do the turned cuff, it was too small to fit over my ankle. So I've been thinking my way through this. I haven't touched these for about a week or so. And I think I've come to the conclusion that I'm going to rip these back. I'm just going to frog them all the way, and I'm going to reknit them on 64 at a 64 inch cast on. The other option that I have is to finish these as they are. I kind of like the rolled hem on these. That's kind of nice. Is to finish knitting them up and hand them off to my daughter. And I was really, really considering that. But the last thing that I gave her was some alpaca mittens that she threw in the wash, and they felted and shrank. And so I think that we just need to work with her a little bit more. She still should be using acrylic yarns. And then as she gets a little bit older, I think we'll be ready to move her on to something that's a little bit more, a higher end from a fabric perspective. So that's one project. Getting to that point was rather painful. And at that point, I think I was just overdoing socks entirely. So I haven't looked at those for a little bit, but I can start to feel the itch. And I'm ready to, I think, having made my decision about what I want to do with them, I think I'm ready to go ahead and frog those and get that going again. In the meantime, especially for those of you who have been following me on Instagram, here is the Nisoi tee as I have it now. And I am doing this. I had to go out and buy... So here's the Nisoi tee. This is a 3-inch ribbed hem on the thing, and I'm now up to the waist decreases. Not too far into it, but I've had a lot of time to knit in the last couple of days because we've been waiting in doctor's offices, and just I've had reasons to be waiting. And this has been this about as mindless knitting as you can get. And I keep typically I don't know if I have it here right now because I think I left it in the other room. Usually I've been wearing my Ablet Knitting Abacus bracelet with this so I can keep track of my row counts. But man, I mean, these rows are knitting up super, super fast. I did have a little bit of a knit emergency on these when I cast on. So you knit up the 2 ribs and then you join them in the round and then you just keep going from there with the pattern. I don't think that's giving away any too many secrets. I was originally knitting this on a 47-inch cable needle, or a circular needle, and when I joined them in the round, it was just a tad bit too snug, which surprised me. So I actually went down, this is now a 36-inch needle, and that is working out actually a lot better. So I think my go-to advice for myself going forward is just to always knit on a needle that's smaller in circumference than you think it needs to be in order to do the project. I think that's going to be my go-to for the future. So that's my Whippin' It segment. Next up is knit spotting. So what have I been wearing? I have been wearing, we had a cold spell last week, and I was in San Francisco to have lunch with a friend of mine, and I wore that was the day I wore all the knits. I wore my San Isabel knits, which I love. They're brown and white and orange, and I don't have them with me because they're in my car because that's my go-to whenever I feel cold. So they're just mitts. They come up to about here on my hand, right about the second knuckle, and they're brown and white and orange, and I love them. They're from the Fair Isle project, a Fair Isle class I took on Craftsy. It was a great, great class. And if you want actually a full review of that, it's available up on the website. I'll post a link to that. So that's what I wore that. My Lighten Up shawl, again, those of you who have been on Instagram have definitely seen this. The Lighten Up shawl knit in a Malabrigo sock yarn. I was wearing the Playa colorway. Then I've also have just been wearing the socks that I have been knitting. And I'm not usually one for socks. I live in California. We don't wear socks. We usually don't wear closed-toed shoes. I live my life typically in flip-flops. But because the weather had been a bit colder, I have been finding myself wearing, boots and shoes. So I've been wearing my socks, and I've never been a big one for knitting socks, mostly because I didn't think that I would care that much about it. I didn't think that it would really make a difference in my life. But what I have found as I have been wearing my socks is that I get a lot of pleasure out of wearing the socks that I have made for myself. So I think that's one of the reasons why I'm excited to get back to my window pane socks, because I want another pair of socks. And I also bought a twin set of gradients that are perfect they're 200 yards each, so perfect for knitting up a single pair of socks. And they're just super cute. They go from a purple into a lovely shade of pink. So I think that that's definitely something I want to do more of. So I'm not going to do any of the other segments that I've been considering today. I think that this is a long enough video podcast. A few announcements. I'm definitely, as I've mentioned a couple times now, I'm working on more reviews. Those will be getting posted. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm trying to post new reviews about once a week to the website, along with my, Teresa's Corner segments, and that's just more of my general knitting thoughts. I would love it. So as I said earlier when we started, this video podcast is going up on YouTube. It's going up on Facebook. It's going up on my website. I've got to figure that out still, but we'll get there. If you could, subscribe to my channel on YouTube, that would be great. Like my Facebook page. It's probably the best way to kind of keep informed as to all the little different things that are going on, or follow me on Instagram. Facebook and Instagram are really where I'm pushing communications out. Instagram, you'll get more of my daily knitting life. So like I was at the doctor's office yesterday and I was knitting, and I posted a picture of that up on Instagram. Facebook, I tend not to do that. I try to keep the Facebook stuff a little bit more, like things that I think that you're going to be, it's less my lifestyle and more what I think you guys are going to be interested in. Like, oh, here's my latest review, or here's my latest blog post, or I'm starting to look for other pieces of interesting knitting stuff that I can share with you guys, and that's more of what's going up on my Facebook page. And Instagram, I'm Knitting Companion. Facebook, I'm also Knitting Companion. YouTube, I'm Knitting Companion Official. So I've been trying to keep this really simple. And then I'm Knitting Companion on Ravelry. So please, follow me, friend me, subscribe to me. That would all be great. Don't forget the website is knittingcompanion.com. And I would love to hear your feedback. So you're welcome to add comments to any of my reviews or any of my blog posts. Just any feedback that you have is wonderful. And if you want to reach out to me directly, you don't want to put something up in public for whatever reason, you're just not comfortable with it, you can always message me on Ravelry, or you can send an email to teresa@knittingcompanion.com. That's my primary email address, and I would really love to hear from you. So thank you, my knitting companions. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Thank you for hanging in there as long as you have, if you've really made it this far. And let me know what you think and what I should take away and what I should work on. And if there's anything that you want to hear about, this is really intended to be for you. I'm starting off about me because I haven't heard from you yet. So just tell me and I'll do it. Thanks. Bye.